It's Monday, June 2nd, and I'm standing on the shores of Herb Lake, which is located in the northwestern section of the Haliburton Water Trails. Now, I was camped on these water trails just about 3 weeks ago, but in the southwestern section, maybe 15 or 20 kilometers south of where I'm standing right now. And at that time, I tried to reach a set of falls on the Black River, but was unable to do so because of high water levels and a flooded out portage. So now I've come back to check out those falls, and I've chosen to launch at the north end of the park so I can have the experience of paddling all the way south along its western boundary and experience, all the lakes, rivers, creeks, nooks and crannies along the way. So that's the plan, and the end goal is reaching those falls finally. All right, so the bugs are out. I'm gonna hop in my canoe and start making my way south along Herb. I just launched onto Herb Lake and I'm heading south on it. There are a few cottages along Herb Lake, but I'm pretty confident that they'll be disappearing the further we get into the trip. The first order of business today will be to explore Knife Lake, which is a lake not really on the route south, but a lake that is to the east of the lake I'm on right now via a couple of short portages. Looks like an interesting lake and might have some possibilities for wildlife, so I'll be heading over there first. About a third of the way down Herb Lake right now, and Knife Lake will be coming up on my left side. It's pretty gusty, and as the lake has narrowed, I think the wind is channeled a little bit, so there's some ripples on the water, nothing too difficult. In fact, the breeze is nice, it keeps the bugs at bay and keeps me cool because that sun is really going to heat things up in the next little while. Just making our way into the bay that leads to Knife Lake. We've got a couple of portages ahead, and then we'll be into Knife. Well, this has been an absolutely lovely paddle into the bay that leads into Knife Lake. And at the end of this bay, there is in fact a set of falls. I'm guessing Knife Lake must be at a higher elevation than where I'm at now because the river is emptying into the bay that I'm now in. So we're going to paddle up and check out those waterfalls and see what they're all about. Well, I'm at the portage into Minnis Lake, and it's located right beside this beautiful set of falls. And after Minnis Lake is Knife Lake. I guess there's a little lake in between the two portages. This one's only 70 meters, but the flies are bad, so I'm going to get started. Well, that was a very short, very straightforward portage, but the flies are incredible. I probably picked the wrong time of year to go checking out waterfalls. But anyway, I'm on the other side of that 70 meter into Mimi Lake or whatever, and then I've got to paddle across this lake, and then there is a short, I think 140 portage, and then we're into Knife Lake, which is the sidetrack destination right now. So I'm going to get loaded up on the boat and paddle across this little bay, start making my way across that portage. Okay. And here is the entrance to Knife Lake. Well, I think it's time for a plan change. This Knife Lake is looking very long, very narrow, and very swampy and bug-filled. And if the black flies here at this portage are any indication of things to come, I'm going to take a hard pass on this lake, head back to Herb, and continue making my way south. made it back onto Herb Lake now from those 2 portages, and wow, the black flies have really followed me into the boat, and they're pretty bad. But I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. I mean, it is early June, and I was hiking right beside a waterfall, so what do you expect? Anyway, going to continue into the main body of Herb Lake and make my way south. Just making my way back out onto Herb Lake proper from the bay that leads into the river that led into Knife Lake, and the wind's picked up quite a bit since I came in this morning. It's a headwind, which is fine. I prefer it to crosswinds, and it's a bit gusty at times. Nothing I can't handle, but the winds today are supposed to get up to 40-kilometer-an-hour gusts. So it'd be nice if I didn't have to deal with those later on. Right now we're just around 10 past 12, and still a very blue, hazy-looking sky, and very comfortable temperatures. I've just made my way onto Ernest Lake by way of a small swift at the south end of Herb Lake. And as soon as I get across this little lake, I'll be doing a 183-meter portage, followed by a short paddle, followed by around an 80-meter portage. And after that, I'll be on Gun Lake, which is my destination for night 1. Just finished the portage at the falls, and I've made my way through sort of a snaking wetland at the base of them, and I'm approaching the 70 or so meter portage that's supposed to take me into Gun. So I'm going to keep making my way over there. I can see the wind in the treetops and I can feel it, but it's not doing a very good job of blowing away the black flies yet, so I'm going to keep paddling and hope that they move along on their own time. Looks like we're at the next portage leading into Gun, 72 meters. This second portage into Gun also has a set of falls just over here on my left at the bottom. It's quite spectacular. Get some shots of it on the way through. But this portage was a short 170, not difficult at all, with generous take-ins and take-outs. And at the takeout of this portage, I can see Gun Lake in the distance, so it won't be a far paddle till I get to my site. And there is Gun Lake in the distance. That was an absolutely beautiful waterfall. What a great way to finish a portage with such a gorgeous spectacle waiting for you at the end. Anyway, it's time for me to make my way into Gun Lake and get set up at my campsite. We're coming up at around 2 p.m. and it's time to get moving and get out of these flies. I've arrived at my campsite on Gun Lake, campsite 94, and I'm glad to be here. As soon as I arrived on the Gun Lake side of the last portage, the wind really came up, and working my way through that little wetland getting into Gun Lake proper was a bit of a challenge. I was getting blown around a bit at the bow. But as soon as I got out onto the lake proper, it took a fair bit of energy to get to my site because the wind was coming from all directions. These little lakes really trap the wind, and there's no really clear direction where it comes from, so you kind of got to be on guard for gusts coming left and right. But since I've got to the campsite, I've just checked it out, and lots of tent pads, lots of open spaces, a nice exposed fire pit which will, capture some of the wind and hopefully keep some of the bugs out as the day wears on. But in the meantime, next steps will be setting up the bug tent for Mason and then setting up my tent. After that, I'm just going to chill out and get some fluids in me and relax a little bit. It's been a fair paddle in here, especially after the side trek to Knife Lake. Well, it's around 3:30 now, and I'm all set up here at the campsite. I've got the tent set up and my bedding and Mason's bedding laid out. Got the bug shelter set up and my chair set up. It's inside the bug shelter right now, along with Mason, who's been snoozing pretty much since the minute we got here. But I think it's time for me to grab a snooze. There's not much to do around the campsite except maybe gather some firewood, but I'm not even sure I'm going to do that because I have a feeling it's going to be an absolute blood donor clinic later tonight at the campsite, and I don't think a fire is going to help that much. So I may even skip the fire and just chill out inside the bug shelter later on. But right now, I'm going to dive in the tent and catch a bit of shut-eye because I'm tired. It's the first real trip of the year, and the sun's been out, the wind's been blowing. There's been a couple of portages along the way, too. So I'm going to grab a little nap and then get up a bit later and see what the evening has in store. Just woke up from my nap, and I'm feeling a little dehydrated, I think. A little headachy, too. So I'm getting some water in me, and I'm filtering some more water over here. Bugs are still out, and the breeze is still here, but the bugs don't seem to be too bothered by it as the heat dissipates and it starts getting a little cooler outside. I think the next step for me is going to be to head out onto this point here, take my binoculars, scan the far shore, and see if I can't find anything moving. This is so cool. From my campsite, I can actually see the waterfall that I paddled past on the way in here, the one after the portage. It's way in the distance, but I've got a clear line of sight just through a couple of trees. I can even see the portage sign. It's pretty cool. I've been scanning the shore, just looking for any signs of life. Haven't seen much other than a loon, a couple of turkey vultures up high. But I think I might get lucky as the evening rolls on. Animals coming down to the water to drink. Nothing yet, though. Well, that was a lot of fun staring out on the lake with my binoculars, trying to spot things moving without too much luck. But there was great light for it, but since then the lights disappeared behind some clouds over there and it's starting to feel a little bit like late afternoon, and it should because we're coming up on 6:30 and that means dinner time. So I've already got Mason fed, but for myself, I will be making Thai beef and pork along with a sidekick to add in. Now this Thai beef and pork is one of Viv's recipes and it is so good. It has hot peppers and oyster sauce and fish oil and soy sauce and a whole bunch of other flavorings that really come to life once you get it in the pot. And then once all this is soft and soggy, I'll be adding in this pasta mix and I'll be calling that a meal. So I'm going to start off by just soaking these in some cold water, and then around 7 o'clock I think I'll start on dinner, put it under some heat, add this in, and then get eating. The bugs are coming out a little bit more now that the sun's pulled off from its intense heat earlier, so I'm going to keep moving and maybe even retreat to the bug tent. Dinner is ready. I've mixed the beef together with the pasta, and I cooked them separately, but then mixed them together at the end for just a few minutes to get all the flavors commingled, and added in a tablespoon of butter, which really does make all the difference because I strip the fats out of the meats when I dehydrate them. The butter. Very good. All right, well, I'm going to enjoy the rest of this meal. And I don't believe I'm going to have a fire tonight. It is just too buggy out there to enjoy it. So I'm going to enjoy the sunset instead from the comfort of the bug shelter, which is where I am now. So I'm going to sign off for now, but I will check in before bed. But it will be a fireless night and probably quite an early night because I'd like to get an early start tomorrow. Dinner's all done and camp's all cleaned up. It's around 8:30 now, and I've spent the past half hour or so chasing beavers and loons around the lake with my long lens. And this one particular beaver was just cruising around on the top of the lake like a shark. And, he was swimming right up to loons. And then when he heard Mason and I on shore, I was fully expecting the tail to go down and for him to do a dive. But instead, he's kind of circled around a few times out front and then came in probably 50 or 60 feet out from shore, just checking out Mason, who was fairly oblivious, just getting a drink of water at the shoreline. Anyway, now the bugs have really come out. Wind has almost completely died down. And I'm going to retreat to the bug tent, do some reading. Mason's already in there, and it is 8:30, and I'm probably due for bed at around 9:30 or 10. It won't be a late one for me because I do want to get an early start tomorrow as I head south out of Gunn. So that's going to be it for me. That's going to be it for me tonight. Thank you for joining me on day one, and I hope to see you on day two. Hello, bud. Hello, bud. It's about 6 a.m. here. Been up for about an hour, lay in the tent. It was quite cold last night, or at least I was quite cold last night. So slept in a little bit. Now we're coming up on 6 and it's time to get coffee going. Mason's in the bug tent. We'll head in there now and get him fed. It's been a beautiful morning here at the campsite. Been up for an hour or so, had my coffee, and just spent a lot of the morning listening to this entire lake wake up. And man, it's getting pretty noisy with all the birds and other activity going on, woodpeckers especially. So far this morning, I've just seen a couple of beavers running silently on top of the water, keeping to themselves at a distance. And a lot of small little birds flipping between trees and foraging around in the bushes, making 10 times the amount of noise you'd think that they'd be capable of. But it is now just about 7 o'clock, and I'd like to be on the water by 8. So time to start breaking down camp and also getting some breakfast in me. For today, I'm having, apples, oatmeal, raisins, and mixed nuts, along with a mixed packet of oatmeal with some granola, crunchy granola that I sprinkle on top after they've had a chance to reconstitute. I don't take my oatmeal hot, I prefer it cold, and it also means I don't have to spend time watching the stove in the morning while tearing down everything else. So I'm just going to let this rehydrate, and in the meantime, I'm going to start tearing down camp. Well, I've got the tent taken down and camp is mostly collapsed. Still have to pack it up, but I'm pretty much ready to push off, so it's time for breakfast. And breakfast turned out pretty well. It's oatmeal as described before, but I put the granola on top as well and mixed it in, and this will give me sort of a crunchy, mushy breakfast before I head out paddling. I've just launched into Gunn from my campsite, and I'm heading south on it now towards around a 400-meter portage, I believe. And I was a little late pushing off from the campsite this morning. And that's because I could not, for the life of me, find the lid to my Trangia stove. I found the flame smotherer, but I just could not find the lid. Searching all over, looking in bushes, has to be somewhere, where could it be? Did all my cooking in one area, made no sense. Checked all my little bags. Then I checked my pocket. You'll never guess what I found in my pocket. That's right. I found the lid in my pocket. So there's a lesson to you. Check your pockets first. Anyway, glad to be off that site now. Extremely buggy, and bugs are still lingering, but not as much as before. And it's a glassy morning here as I head south with the beaver and the loons. Gun Lake into Raven, 360 meters. Completed the portage on Gun, and I've headed out into Raven Lake, which is a lake dotted with cottages. And I'll be getting off this lake shortly at the next portage, but wow, the bugs at that last portage were among some of the worst I've ever experienced. Like ants on you. I mean, you could shake your hand. You're carrying the canoe. You could try to shake your hand, but it just felt like ants crawling on you. And even when you're walking back to get your second load empty-handed and your arms are swinging in the wind, every time your arm swings back, it just hits a cloud of insects. So yeah, it was very buggy. And I don't wear bug juice because when I'm shooting, I don't want any of that stuff getting on my equipment. So I just cover up and try to tough it out. So no bug juice made that a little tough. Poor Mason got the worst of it though, because they really find his fleshy spots in around his groin and in his ears. So I've been killing mosquitoes nonstop since I got in the canoe, and I think he's finally a little bit comfortable now. Anyway, I'm still swatting them, so I'm going to get paddling and make my way over to the next portage. I've arrived at my next portage. It is over the dam leading into Wren Lake. So I'm going to find a spot to pull over, get unloaded, and pray that this portage is not quite as buggy as the last. Made our way to the dam, and we're going to avoid the set of falls ahead and take the portage on the left and make our way about 200 meters over into Wren Lake. And we're now going to make our way over to Wren Lake proper. Well, that portage was short and sweet. Buggy though, buggy like the other one. I think I'm starting to realize why I haven't seen another soul out since I came on this trip. The bugs are definitely an unwelcome presence, but if you want to come out and see what's out here, and if you want to come out when there's no people, coming when there's bugs is just about the perfect time. In fact, when I made my booking the night before I came, there was not one single campsite booked in the entire Haliburton Highlands, except for myself. So it's kind of a special feeling to have your own private provincial park. Well, even though it's not really a park, but it's nice to have your own wilderness space, if you can get it. So anyway, we're on Little Wren Lake right now, which is nothing more than a pond. And I'm going to keep paddling and make my way into Wren. I've made my way across Wren Lake, and I'm at the top of the falls leading into the upper marsh area of the Black River. It's a 232 portage. I'm about 100 meters out. I can still hear the falls off at the distance. So I'm going to make my way over to River Left and tackle the 232 into the upper marsh area of the Black River. I've come upon a rapid and I can't run it, so it's basically a lift over, but the water's running a little bit fast for me to do that. So I'm on River Left here, and there's a little tiny portage trail, leads right there. So we'll take this trail and then make our way down to the 232. I've just made my way into the upper Black River, and what I thought was going to be a 200-meter portage turned out to be one lift over and then one 40-meter portage around those falls. So now I'm heading into a boggy, marshy area on my way to the Black River proper. So I'm going to start paddling through it and see what we see. I've made my way into the upper Black River marsh, and it's quite a winding, beautiful little paddleway. In fact, lots of red-winged blackbirds and other species I'm not familiar with fluttering around and making all kinds of noise. But now I'm continuing on my way to, I believe, the 495 portage that will take me into, I guess, the main body of the Black River, and it's that section that I intend to camp in tonight as well. So I'm going to make my way further downstream and get ready for that final portage of the day. Looks like that could be my campsite, straight across the bay there. Whew. Just got to get the canoe loaded and make my way straight across there. That's going to be home for later tonight, but first things first, on to Black River Falls. Let's go, Mason. Well, that's a great feeling. I finally got a chance to check out these falls after being thwarted about 3 weeks ago. Feels good to finally get here and check them out because I've heard a lot about them and they are truly beautiful. Lots of places to view them, and gosh, it's not the kind of falls you want to go over, that's for sure. All kinds of deadfall and broken logs and sweepers and strainers and all the rest, but what a spectacular sight. Totally worth the paddle to get here. But now it's time to go to camp and set up the bug shelter and get the heck out of these bugs. They are thick as thieves, and being on a river probably doesn't help. So Mason and I are going to jump back in the canoe paddle upstream to our campsite 96, I believe. Well, I made it to the end point of this trip. Checking out those falls was a real delight. Minus the bugs, of course, but still, it was just great to visit a falls and feel all that power and look at all that spray and feel all that danger and pretend how you'd canoe down it if you had to, you know, that kind of stuff. Anyway, I backtracked 500 meters or so to my campsite, the one I reserved, campsite 96 on the Black River. And I'm second guessing my campsite choice, if I'm honest. It's very buggy, and what's more is that there's a very decent breeze right now. So I'm just imagining what it's going to be like later tonight. Now, this is a there and back trip for me, and I am going back to the same put-in that I came in on. And I know that thunderstorms are expected around noon on tomorrow. Yeah, whatever day that is, Wednesday, I think. So thunderstorms are expected tomorrow around 2, and I don't want to be on the water when those happen. So the plan was to spend a third night up on Herb Lake at the south end, and I booked that as a hedge for weather. But I'm thinking I'm not going to stay at this campsite, and I'm thinking I'm going to make up some distance and start heading back in the direction of Herb Lake and stay possibly on Gun or some other lake in between here and there. There is no one else staying in the park this weekend, so I'm not worried about taking someone's campsite. And I've set up the bug shelter here for Mason and for myself just to take a break from all these bugs and have some water and chill out for a bit. But it's only 1:45 in the afternoon, and the thought of sitting in this bug shelter for the next 8 hours does not interest me. So I think we're going to start our return trip early, and that way we have the flexibility to pull the chute early tomorrow and get out before those thunderstorms come, which would be my preferred option to staying overnight and then paddling out after the thunderstorms. So that's the plan, and yeah, I'm just going to chill out a bit more in the bug shelter and then drink some more water and then push off from here in about half an hour and start making up some ground on the way back to my put-in at Herb Lake. I made it back to Gun Lake, and not only did I make it back to Gun Lake, but I made it back to the same campsite that I was camped at this morning. So a bit of cruel irony there, packing up all your gear, carrying it down 3 or 4 waterfalls, only to decide you don't want to sleep in a swamp, to turn around and bring all your gear back up those same portages, except this time they're uphill, not downhill. And then you paddle back to the exact same campsite, set your bug shelter up in the exact same spot. But it couldn't have been any other way, because when traveling with Mason, I've got, you know, he's at my feet, and the canoe would be like this if I didn't have weight in the canoe. And, you know, it is the first trip of the year, and I wanted to work. I wanted to stretch out the muscles and see how my knee's doing and see how the body feels. And I did that today by doing a whole bunch of portages twice. Anyway, I'm back at the campsite now, and I did have a tailwind all the way back. But in the past hour or so, the wind has really picked up to the extent where I wouldn't want to be paddling into it. Just the gusts are so extreme. Of course, that doesn't bother me because it keeps the bugs at bay, but I'm just glad I'm off the water for it and chilling out at a site that I'm comfortable at and happy at. So that's it for now. I'm going to go hop in the bug tent, chill out with Mason for a bit, and then get started on dinner. That dinner of Katie and tuna really hit the spot, and it was just the shot in the arm that I needed, because when I got to camp, I was pretty gassed. Hadn't eaten much during the day. My water ran out way back down at the falls, so I just thought I'd tough it out until I made it back. Probably not a good idea. But now I'm hydrated and fed, and the same with Mason, and camp is cleaned up. Blue Barrel's been stashed, and I've just got my chair and water bottle inside the bug shelter here, which is where I'm about to retreat to read my book. Good morning from day 3, and it is a very blustery, overcast, almost humid day. And I can feel that rain is in the air, maybe not imminently, but it's coming. Anyway, got up at about 5 this morning and got my coffees going. and just did a bit of shooting and chilled out and just hung out with the lake as it woke up. And the wind has done nothing but pick up since that time, which isn't a concern because I believe it's going to be a tailwind as I head back. But next steps for me are to finish this coffee and then pack up camp, load the canoe, start making my way back to the access. I've got camp collapsed and all my gear packed and staged down by the canoe, and it's time for me to start thinking about heading back. But man, have I enjoyed my time on these water trails. Beautiful lakes, challenging portages, and scenic waterfalls the entire length of the route. And I didn't see a soul the entire time I was out here, which is almost unheard of. So if you're looking for solitude and you don't mind the locusts, this is a great time of year to be out canoe camping. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. Time to push off and make my way back to the access. Thanks so much for coming along on this canoe trip. We hope to see you on the next one.